Thank you very much, everyone, for coming here to the University of Technology in Vienna, TU Wien, as well as to you listening to us digitally. I hope you can enjoy the weather also outside. It's lovely here in Vienna, and we are really looking forward to a great evening. I am honored to not only ask the two speakers that we just heard onto the panel, Elena and Alfred, please have a seat, but also ask in alphabetical order two more speakers to the panel. This is, please, come here. Selma Prodanovic, she is called Grande Dame of the startup ecosystem. She is listed as one of the top 100 influential women in the startup and VC investment scene in Europe. You may applaud, of course. She is also happily married and mother of two amazing young adults. One of them, in fact, I just learned today, also studying psychotherapy, and they're both here, I heard. Yeah, so speak. Welcome. Yeah, great mom, really, honestly. Yeah. Next generation, exactly. Yeah. Last but not least, Professor Beate Wimmer-Puchinger. Welcome to the panel. Professor Puchinger habilitated in psychotherapy too herself. She is president of the Professional Association Bundesverband of Psychologists in Austria. She was program director of a program run by the city of Vienna with a focus on female health. She's a health expert, and she also was advisor to the Ministry of Health for some time. Welcome, amazing to have you here. Thank you very much for coming. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Here you have a little QR code on your chairs. So if you have questions during this amazing and interesting panel, you're welcome to scan it. You'll be directed to Slido. It's an app. And you can ask anything, and I will get all the questions and will make sure to feature them. And the people at home, you have the link to Slido integrated within the Open system, and you're more than welcome to ask us questions. Thank you so much.
And Roy will pick up the questions from the digital audience or the physical audience also digitally asking questions and bring them to us and to you as a panel. Beate, I would like to start with you. You are president of the association in Austria responsible for psychotherapy and psychological support of patients. Where do you see bottlenecks in really reaching patients, in particular with digital solutions?
First of all, we are 6,500 psychologists in Austria who belong to our association, and I must say, first of all, I would fully agree with Alfred, of course, surprise. And yes, there is an urgent need, especially because, as you said, thanks Corona, mental health is becoming an issue, and I really must say, I was a fighting woman. I was always struggling for equality, equity, and mental health. All my life, for women at least. And I was not heard, or it was not really heard, it wasn't really taken for serious. But now, the ministers have learned in all the countries, yet, yes, the issue which WHO always said, there is no health without mental health. So now they really understood that. So, of course, we do have then, as you asked, a huge problem, a huge population who is waiting for help. And for this, I think it's important that we have now other methods, other targets to help. And we just said we work on that to lecture our psychologists, clinical psychologists, also in giving digital help. And we will, in our academia for psychologists, we will raise this issue because we learned, thanks to the young generation, that it's possible and it's a great, I think, possibility.
Do you also see hurdles really on the patient side? Are the patients, is the health or mental health literacy and digital literacy the same in all patient groups? Or are we facing another issue there?
I don't want to make a lecture here, but this is a very hot issue, a very hot question. Thank you very much for that. Yes, there is. There is a huge problem of mental health literacy. People just don't know what anxiety is about or depression is about, what alarmingly signals you can learn. You think they are lazy bones or whatsoever. So I think there's a lot, Alfred. We have a lot to do to work on that and make people more reluctant, more aware of this kind of illnesses. So it takes often much too long unless they are then saying, okay, I need help. So I think this is one issue. And the other problem is that we also have to work on digital literacy, because we must be aware that we must left behind the elderly or very old, maybe people, the poor, and the one who are partly illiterate, which also exists. But in this, maybe there's a chance.
Yeah, I'd like to hand over to Elena. Do you see a difference in different patient groups if it comes to really being able to use your solutions? That's one thing, but also really getting access to your solutions.
Yes, I think, first of all, I think we all agree that, digital interventions are not meant to replace face-to-face psychotherapy. And the studies that we've conducted and the effects that we've seen, we've observed in a population that can actually imagine working with a digital solution. So I think it's we can't expect, if we say we throw it all out there, we make everyone use it, that this works equally for everyone. There are a lot of solutions out there. Some have better quality than others. And I think we really need to figure out how can we design a solution in a way that people use it. So, it has a lot to do with awareness, making people actually aware that this is out there. And I think, not only making patients aware, but also making doctors aware. Why do we not have, in all of the countries by now, digital health as a really fixed lecture in the curriculum? I think that is one of the steps. So making people aware, but also designing interventions in a way that it appeals to people. Often these solutions are developed by academics. So, you need to really involve patients and make sure that they understand what you're talking about. And if we're talking about, various groups with different educational background, you can't expect them to, read very long texts. Maybe, videos are a better solution in that. And also, the way how we reach people, it's we've seen, from our interventions, that we have about 70% who have I would say, higher educational background. So we really need to figure out how do we reach people who are not part of this yet. So, you can think of online marketing, for example. But I think also working on the structures and involving GP and the existing established structures with psychotherapists is crucial at this point.
Yeah. And amongst those 40,000 patients that have used your solutions already, do you see a pattern in terms of patient groups? And did it change when the respective solution really became a DIGA?
Yes, very interesting question. So I think similar to a lot of different areas, if you're talking about prevention or psychotherapy, normally our predominant target group, I wouldn't say target group, but the people that we reach, a lot of them, 70 to 80% are female, 70% have a higher educational background. So this is what we've seen. But a lot of them, about 75%, haven't used any existing healthcare offers before. So is this also a big chance? Very interestingly, what we observed when we changed our online marketing strategy to focus more on younger adults, target groups from, I want to say 20 to 35, that also changed the access and the age structure in our intervention. So it is possible to reach certain group, especially with online marketing, via social media, for example.
Alfred, we heard already that we also need to train and teach the experts. How is it integrated as of today at the courses that you run at the university, Sigmund Freud University? And what's the plan in the future? Yeah.
Yes, we have implemented in our we have a medical school at the university, and in the first 3 years, all must go through a group therapy experience, all students, which is very uncommon for the medical students because they want to learn medicine, not to reflect about themselves. It's not so easy. In fact, we have changed the trainers of this skill line. We only take medical doctors who have a psychotherapy training. Other psychotherapists are not really able to conduct these scopes because they don't understand the inner soul of medical doctors or becoming medical doctors. But I wanted to say a second point, that is how the world changed. I remember in my professional early years, about 35 years ago, when you said, when you spoke about psychotherapy or psychology, it was something where the psychiatrist said, yes, why not do it? But if you need really help, come to us and we give you proper treatment with medication, etc. Then there was an increase of this movement, this psych movement, not only in Austria, worldwide, but in Austria quite heavy. And the official lines of psychiatrists changed. They said, yes, psychiatry and psychotherapy. And one could also see it on in the people who showed up in TV. First, only psychiatrists, then sometimes also psychologists or psychotherapists, and nowadays very rare psychiatrists. Only when there's big murder or something like that, they prefer psychiatrists. And there are studies showing that, especially in long-term results, psychotherapy does better than psychiatry, so to say. And that has really changed the mind.
And do you see a difference in terms of using?
Yes.
On the one hand,
yes.
you really practicing the use of digital solutions as a therapist?
Well, this is the next step. This is the next step. So the pioneers are on the way since about 10 years. and more, and I said, thanks COVID, gave the big push to use that. What we are still missing are the studies of effectiveness. I was surprised that you have so many studies about.
I will send them to you.
Yes, with pleasure.
Thank you.
Yes.
That would be great. Yeah. Selma, we heard amazing stories about you already. Big round of applause also. What is your personal take in terms of mental health? What really made you a mental fitness advocate
Exactly.
as an angel investor?
I'm really, really excited to be here today, and I would like to thank you and your hub to pointing out and to making this possible and talking about such an important topic. And as you all said, it is about the awareness of the mental health and mental health issues. And in my work, I'm a professional speaker, I'm on stages, and what I want to do and use this opportunity to really speak up about mental health and raise the awareness from the other side. Me as a patient, me as somebody who was depressed, me as somebody who was out there not knowing what's going on with me, not being diagnosed, going to doctors and everybody telling me, oh, you're just fine, I'll show up the way I am. And they'll say, oh, you're just fine, no problem, you're dealing it, so nothing wrong with you. And the point is that at the highest level of my presence in the market and the startup Grand Dame and the awards and everything that was happening in the outside, at the same time I was living in deep darkness inside. And these two things didn't match with each other. So inside I was really deeply depressed, and outside I was functioning. So I was doing my work, kids, household, everything was just, I was functioning, but inside nothing was happening. And this is something that you don't see. I mean, you don't see, I was not depressed in terms that I was laying in bed and I couldn't do anything, but I was deeply depressed. And it really helped me at some point that I found out that there's a notion that is called the high functioning depression. I know there's a lot of discussion about that. How do you call it? Does it exist? But that helped me to find out what's going on, because I just was not diagnosed. I didn't know what was wrong. And I was then blaming myself for, not knowing or not being able to, I was just totally down. I didn't feel like anything. I lost my happiness. Nothing was really making me really go out. I mean, I was able to function, and I was able, what they call the Mona Lisa smile. It's like always smiling, but at the end of the day, inside there was this total darkness and deep emptiness. And I didn't know, and nobody told me what was going on. And I've spent many, many years working on different ways, using different methods of hypnosis to chakras to, psychotherapy, digital, personal, in all kinds of ways. Spent really years working on my own, and then really seeking out help and coming out of the whole thing. But I really want to use my position, which is prominent in that sense, to really speak up about it and say that even people that from the outside seem to be very successful and really holding their lives in their hands, might inside be deeply depressed and be in a deep darkness. And, to me, and I would like to, because you've been working with women on that sense.
Only, with women only.
Yeah. I do believe that this is a momentum, and you mentioned that in terms of digital, women are more present in there. This is something that we can use. It's so much easier to use it, because I can do it anytime, from anywhere. I can stay anonymous, even in some cases. I've used InstaHelp and worked with InstaHelp on many occasions, but I've also used them, and it helped me. The fact that I was able to I could use it anonymous. I could use it anytime. Whenever I had the time, they would I was able to have a meeting. But I do believe this kind of, I don't know if that's the correct answer. This high functioning depression is something that is very strongly a female story, because we were trained to function to the outside and kind of to be out there, but not to really look into the inside and make it really happen. And one thing I must say, I don't know, my kids are here, but one of the reasons I'm still around is, the two kids here, because I was like, I can't kill myself because I have two kids. that's something that you go through, and I think that if you're not in that momentum in the whole story, that might have been different. But I believe that it's a combination of all. But I want to use my position to really speak up and speak and build the awareness that it's okay not to be okay, and it's okay to seek treatment, and you can be better. And I think that's that's really what I want to do and make sure that it happens.
I would like to comment on that as a gender expert. When I was appointed as a women's health counselor for the city of Vienna, I learned that, for instance, postpartum depression is very, very popular and nobody talked about. So I went to Washington, and knowing there a fantastic psychiatrist and psychotherapist, and she told me, "Are the young mothers in Austria all happy?" I said, "Oh, I don't know." So, and there are the figures, and listen to them. About 20% of women, after 3 to 6 months after delivery, they do have the risk of getting a depression, and nobody talked about. So I specialized on that and made huge, I think, very good programs. They still exist and they work. And I went to Australia, because in this country they already have seen this problem. And what I would ask the politician, as the Australians did, they defined a national action plan and a year for mental health. And there they designed and developed Beyond Blue. This is a fantastic program. There's also, there are all things. There are mental health for gays, for lesbians, for endogenous, for young, for elder women, or not only women, people, for kids, for really every target group. And they do have, for instance, checkups, and it's very easy. And that's what we have to do. We have really reach the people so they can learn, do I have this or that? And then they get top secret a therapist or a program nearby so they can enter it. I think those are the moments we could really work on that, because really then to reach the people. And they learned a lot from the Australians. And we started also for Vienna a little program. We didn't have the money to build a skyscraper like it is. It's you can find everything in this Beyond Blue. Also, the name is nice. And I wanted to thank you for your comment, because yes, if you look at the data, mental health problems are 2/3 are. Women are suffering, and 1/3 are the men. But we also have to reach the men. There's also a chance. How can we do that to reach the male population? They also suffer, of course, from mental health, but they are not able to say, yes, I'm depressed. This is more dangerous.
But we all have to learn that. Yeah.
But there's still a lot to do, I just want to say, and let's do it.
As an entrepreneur, I'm sorry, as a, pushing entrepreneurs and angel investor, of course, this is a huge opportunity. I wish we didn't have that opportunity, but when it's there, it's about creating the solution that are really easy to use, and that we can, as in this discussion we are having here today, to reach a lot of people. I mean, a very simple, my mom is 89 years old, and she needs psychotherapy. I mean, she needs psychotherapy, and she needs medication as an elderly person that is going through depression. And how do I get there? How do I find a person? She can't be walking around, but she's not really this, FaceTime, Zoom type. So how do we manage that? And it's a challenge to find a way to do that. But luckily enough, she's ready to speak about it, which is, in her generation is, the first reaction was, I'm not crazy. I didn't say you're crazy, but, that's the first reaction you have. So we still have a lot of time to do that.
Yeah. Elena, there is myriads of solutions out there, apps for everything. What makes it really, what makes a solution like yours, or your solutions, really being the successful one? What do you think? How can patients choose amongst the thousands of apps that are out there?
Yeah, the other day someone told me that there are about 20 new apps in the App Store every single day on digital health only. So it's just like so many apps that are out there. Sorry?
It's a jungle.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a jungle, yeah.
It is a jungle, and it can be difficult. I mean, for patients, I think we need to get patients empowered to really be able to choose the offer that suits them. In Germany, the head associations developed kind of quality criteria, what to look out for. You know, I would always say look out for the evidence, clinical evidence, because a lot of providers say, you know, we use CBT and that works, but actually it doesn't. So I've conducted a meta-analysis on all available digital stress management programs out there. And I only included interventions or studies, randomized controlled trials on interventions that were, you know, investigating interventions that were developed in an academic context by experts, by psychotherapists. And what I found was half of these interventions are not effective. And these are the ones that are, you know, developed in an academic setting. So, you know, what does that mean for the rest of it? And, you know, at best, people have a negative, at best, I say, negative experience, move on. But at, you know, at worst, their condition exacerbates, you know, they feel worse, even say, you know, I've tried that, I'm not going to do anything else, mental health care offers don't work for me. And that is something that we really have to, you know, look out for. And there are certain organizations that give you an indication on digital interventions that are, you know, commendable. You know, there's a Digital Therapeutics Alliance, or, you know, Stiftung Warentest, there's a consumer organization, but also in Germany, KV App-Radar, like there are a lot of things out there. And with the Digital Care Act, I think that is something that can really make a difference now, where interventions go through a very extensive certification process, and they look at data protection. Where's the data being saved? You know, is it going to the US? No, it shouldn't. How is the clinical evidence? How is usability, quality management? They look at a lot of indicators and have very high standards. So once you make it through the certification process, you know, people have the opportunity to actually have a good feeling by using that.
I have two questions.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Two questions. I would like to know, do you have, of all your clients, what is the average age of your users? First, and then the level of education you said, or the income, or the background, are there migrants as well? So what population can you reach with your programs? And secondly, of course, because I'm the president of 6,500 psychologists and therapists, and I think, Alfred, you would maybe also agree with me, as a very traditional trained psychotherapist, there are still some skeptical moments. What, as Alfred said, what is the relationship, or what is the motivation to sit at home in the pajama and maybe follow up a program of how I can overcome my depressions or my whatsoever. So is it possible, or are these already certain types of patients? For them it's possible, and for others not. For me it wouldn't work. I wouldn't have the discipline, I think, for myself. So what is the motivation behind that, and what experiences do you have on that? And of course then, I must say, I wouldn't be happy at all if, because it's cheaper for the social insurance system, if all my colleagues and all the therapists and clinical psychologists wouldn't have any job anymore, because we think it's much cheaper to sit somebody to the machine and help themselves to overcome their problems. So I'm also in medicine. I fight for remaining personal interaction, and I really do want to see my doctor in front of me if I have some problems, and it's the same, I think, also for this issue, for mental health. But nevertheless, it's a huge...
Yeah.
Because we're facing huge problems, we need huge solutions.
Mm-hmm. With regard to your first question on the demographics of our population, we actually have from 18 to 84 everything. So we've we had patients that
Germany?
in Germany, yes, there was one lady with diabetes type 2 who had depressive symptoms, and she needed a little bit of extra support when it came to the digital part, but she was very open of using it. The average age that we have is normally around 42, 43, so that is, and majority is female. As I said, higher educational background, but you observe actually everything through, like the various age groups. Also, like income-wise, there is a range, and the motivation behind it is usually I don't get a place with a psychotherapist. I wanted to try something else. I don't want to talk to someone about it. I think I can solve this by myself.
But you have to be a little strong.
You have to have, I mean, the self-efficacy part is very important. But interestingly, also when it comes to self-efficacy, normally or sometimes in psychotherapy, clients say, thank you that you helped me. I couldn't have done that without you as a therapist. And what we observe is that people attribute the success of an intervention much more on themselves. I completed this and I went through this.
That's a good point.
Yes, and I also don't think. I think it is important to talk about the fact, replacing psychotherapy with digital health interventions. That's certainly not my motivation and why I'm doing this, because I think it should be an additional offer. However, I think it is always really important to emphasize that choice because, in different healthcare systems, a stepped care approach is being implemented. So you always have to go through digital first. Is that the way we want to go? I think it should be a discussion to really have people empowered to choose the offer that is right for them. And I also don't think it should be perceived as a second option, because if you tell people, you can't have face-to-face psychotherapy, we have this app, how is that going to work? That it's just not what will bring people, to actually make use of that. So I think, with public health insurance companies, it can be an offer that, might be able to save some costs. But let me tell you that public health insurance companies, they also, are very tough in paying that. Like we've just observed the first DGAs in Germany going through the price negotiation. So after a year, they negotiate the price with the providers, and the providers can set a price themselves. So everything from 200 to 750 euros for a solution that is 3 months long. Still cheaper than face-to-face psychotherapy, but the average price point is around 400 euros for a DIGA. And what we observed now is that the providers and the public health insurance companies, they can't agree. So all of it goes to the arbitration board, and they set a price. And the prices that we've seen are all in the area of 200 to 250 euros. And there's this whole discussion, is this too much? Is this not enough? And I think as a provider, from a provider's perspective, the criteria and the quality standards, the certifications on quality management, data protection that you all have to fulfill, it'll be very difficult for a lot of providers to actually offer those interventions at that price point.
Selma wanted to add something there, and then Alfred.
Yeah. I would like to also to mention this, the question, how does it work digitally? And we have to think that love works digitally. And if that works, then a relationship with a psychotherapist can also work.
You mean sex or love?
No, love. I mean, you have love relationship. Well, I don't know. I haven't tried it. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. But,
Oh, it's coming up.
I don't know. I'm not saying it does or it doesn't. I didn't try that. But I know that...
on the sexual medicine, so a lot of going out there. Excuse me.
But in terms of love, we know that love relationships work today, and that is a great help to have the possibility to see the person you love digitally and to have a relationship with that person. And that's something I believe that the same way that can work, it can work also in a relationship. And I did go with InstaHelp. I I had therapy digitally, but I also now have my therapist on a one-to-one personal, physical, and I loved both, and I want to have both. And each of these two solutions was a complementary solution in a specific time and place in my life. And it was very important to have that. We can think of it, you still have shops and you have Amazon. So it's not, it is the possibilities that we have today, and this is the way we have to think and encompassing. And I do believe, unfortunately, the problem is growing. So I think there is more than enough work for, the 6,500 and for more people than that. It is to make it easy, accessible, and possible. And I think it's really important to think also in terms of any digital solutions, to think in terms of market. So any new market, and that is a new market, has the development phase. You still, at the beginning, you have just a few players. Then you have a bunch of players, a lot of them out there. Then there is a cleaning of the market that happens in any space. And then you have those that disappear. And then you are in a situation the same way you have today. You have, millions of lawyers and millions of doctors and millions of, specialists in any kind of space. And that the same thing is going to happen there. It is a development, it's a huge need out there, and that has to be solved one way or another. But there is this development, and we will go through that stage where it is going to be difficult for some people that will have negative experiences, and we will lose them on that space. But still, at least they tried, compared to never even being aware that you need something.
Yeah. Alfred.
Just want to mention one aspect which we did not speak about, that is, you mentioned it with love, and I say trust.
Yeah.
How are we able to develop trust as a patient, but also as a psychotherapist? And this is connected with the second topic, a topic of confidentiality. And this is even difficult for psychotherapists, because I know a case where the psychotherapist was talking with a woman, and her husband went to court to sue the psychotherapist in saying, you destroyed my marriage. And now you have to find arguments why you didn't, or so.
Okay.
That is a big problem, and I know that cryptology is quite on the way, but in most of the programs they are not safe enough.
Okay. I would like to invite the audience to answer, to ask their questions so we can answer them here. I know that there is quite some questions already digitally, but also you, please speak up, just raise your hand. I'll look into the audience several times. Otherwise, just speak up also. So we don't miss your questions.
Correctly, if the digital solutions can help in terms of diagnosis of the severity of the illness. Is that, yeah. In my opinion, and you mentioned that when there is a certain level, certainly that can help. Because for me, for example, I really had an issue and I didn't know how to deal with that. So I was Googling. And then you have those different websites and those different, blogs and all of that would have this checklists. And, if you feel this and if you feel that, and that helped me to seek, to find, because I had no idea. I was totally, this was a totally new world, and I had to find out and to really look at things before. I mean, I'm not talking about diagnosis, but I'm just talking like, you're okay, It's like this was this level. But I do believe that it's possible today to go through certain things in a very clear and specific way, and to have a certain level of diagnosis, which would then lead to go, and I strongly believe it has to be a doctor at the end of the day, a psychiatrist who does give a diagnosis at the end of the day. But it helps you make these first steps to know that you have to go somewhere. And that's the way I personally would from my personal experience.
I could add that a lot of our colleagues who doing psychodiagnostic, they moved to doing psychodiagnostic tests now also digitally, so and worked very well. And
it's still somebody. Exactly. That's still. I mean, I do personally. I think that we are not that far in terms of the. I don't know if that's possible. I'm not a doctor, so I cannot say. But I can say from the personal experience. I also wanted to have somebody, a doctor, tell me, and because they didn't tell me, then I had to find another solution. But that was another story. I had to find out something else.
Alfred,
I just want to add to what you said. The question is, what happens with those who are severely sick, not
like
functioning?
No. Yeah. You're right. Absolutely.
Depressed,
absolutely.
Who can do their work.
Yeah.
They suffer enough. We know.
Yeah.
Every one of us know it personally.
Yeah.
But there are people who are totally helpless.
Yeah.
And who need to be hospitalized.
Yes.
Sometimes kill themselves or try to kill themselves. And for that we need some structures, some supportive structures beyond those who are able to click to an app.
In that sense, thank you very much for this one. If I can make an appeal to the city of Vienna and everybody who has any power, that we need to increase the spaces for young adults and young youth and teenager. We need more places. It's terrifying how small it is and how many young people are suffering really bad and cannot be hospitalized and don't have a place to go. So it's my call to everybody. If there's anybody listening out there, please do something.
Right, you have some questions from the digital audience.
Yes, thank you, Irene. So we have around 30 questions. We cannot answer all of them,
Oh, wow.
but
30.
yes, we have a very active audience. But I urge the audience to stay put, especially the one at home, because Dr. Heber and Professor Pritz are going to stay for half more hour, available for both digital and physical questions. So if we cannot answer all of them, I'm sorry. We have a question from Dr. Stefan Lutzmeier. What are the lessons learned from the German DIGA system regarding reimbursements of digital therapeutics, and when do we get a similar system here in Austria?
You start.
Very interesting question. So, I mean, the law was introduced 2019-2020. So, I guess what we've learned, the experience is that the BfArM, so the institution who certifies these interventions, has received about 140 applications. So a lot of applications, but so far only 31 made it into reimbursement. And there are actually two paths, just to make you aware of this. There's a permanent path when you already have all the evidence and you get a permanent regulatory approval. And then there's the preliminary path where you actually don't have any evidence. Or no, let's not call it any evidence. You have like maybe 30 people pre-post where you could show some effects. And I think that was a very controversial discussion. Our former health minister hasn't only made friends by introducing it that way, to have something that in reimbursement where you don't really know if it actually works. But also, some others said, that's how we get innovation into practice, and the speed how to do that. But something that's something that certainly has sparked a lot of discussions. But I know that a lot of European countries wanted to, introduce that system. France, Italy, Belgium, Austria as well. So there's a whole movement. And I mean, Emmanuel Macron said, we will just replicate what works in Germany. And I hope he doesn't, but also learns from the experience. And yeah, just, to see where the pain points are, and certainly the standards are very high for providers. The price points are very low in order to bring that forward. And I think, you know, the preliminary and the permanent regulatory approval, that's certainly something that is always being discussed. A big issue is also interoperability, you know, to connect to electronic patient files. That's something that's very difficult on different parts.
You have been invited by the Minister of Health in Austria, or to whom you...
Me personally, no, but there's like this there's this idea of having a pan-European movement to harmonize all the regulations, so you don't actually, like, not every country does their own stuff, but have actually something where you have to apply once for certification, and it is accountable for all the European countries. So this is kind of the discussions where it's currently going.
So maybe a follow-up on that.
I will just try to start to answer the question, the second part of the question. When I believe nobody can tell in Austria yet, though we have various organizations who are working on the replication of DIGA in Austria too. We have one organization that just is a very young organization that was implemented just for that, which is Health Pioneers, is really a duplication of the Spitzenverband in Germany, really. So the digital health startups really teamed up, because that would really make the innovation speed get faster in Austria too. Good luck. Austria decided not to just copy, but learn from everything that was the experience on every side, the insurance side, the startup side, the public side, really, and learn from this. There is another organizing, even the industry associations of the pharmaceutical industry, Pharmig as well, in collaboration with Austromed, which is the association of the medical device companies in Austria. They teamed up in order to also analyze what can be done and how can we do it. Maybe we have someone who might be able to answer, say a little bit more. Mr. Wassig from ÖGK, do you want to give an answer?
No. That was good.
No pressure at all.
When and how much, and no pressure, as I said.
When exactly, you don't know.
Could you just shortly repeat the question? Sorry, it wasn't my.
When will we have the DIGA in Austria?
Well, that's a very interesting question. Thank you for that. Let's say we're working on that. Like we are exchanging with the government what will be the action plan for the next months and next years. Due to the circumstances on the government side, you might notice that. We will work on that, of course, in the next.
Yeah. So we don't know yet, but I'm really confident that we will have it, and everybody really knows that it made a big move, and this is what we feel. Roy, there's more questions.
Yeah, to follow up exactly on that, we have a question from Mr. Simon Bock. Will digital treatment go hand in hand with drug treatment or mental disorders, disease in the future? How might such semi-digital approach look like? So if I summarize this question, will it be a kind of combined treatment of therapeutics in terms of pharma?
Use.
Yes.
And alcohol.
Pharmacological therapeutics, hand with hand with digital therapeutics. This is very interesting because we haven't spoken about big pharma here in their role in this, which, as you know, all of them are making moves in these directions already. But funnily enough, the startups are making head starts. So it's very interesting.
As usual.
As usual, yeah.
What we know by many studies, it's sometimes not heard, but we do know that there is a lot of evidence that psychotherapy and clinical psychology is doing very good, sometimes even better than pharmacological therapy, and it's cheaper, by the way. And so this question is very interesting, how those two can be combined in future, I think.
Yeah, not only combined, but also, to find out, medication also often has side effects. So, if you can use, for example, a digital treatment instead of medication, that would be a huge thing. I don't know of any examples or studies who have compared the two, but I'm certainly that there are some
studies on that.
and
with good results.
I think when we talk about pharma, what they can bring to the table is obviously, the sales structure. We have ourselves a cooperation with Tiva Ratio Pharma now, a chronic pain course, because for a lot of startups, it's very difficult to, build up a sales structure from scratch. And pharma is, that's what they do. That's what they know. So I think there can be a combination, in bringing that to the doctors, informing doctors about that possibility.
Do you also see, and that's a question to all of you, do you see that there is a chance in terms of, really drugs being an emergency treatment and digital solutions, as most of them really aim at change of habit and change of awareness also, and teaching the patient how to handle and tackle the situation by him herself. Is this a combination that we will see in the future?
I think that's very interesting. Also, I'm also asking Alfred. I think from a expert view, being a psychotherapist and also working with women suffering from alcohol problems, it's a question, I think, of discipline. How can you motivate them to stay in the program? But on the other hand, I think it would be a big chance, because we know there is a huge problem on this in the youth and also in adult, and we don't reach them, and the therapeutical efforts are also very, very hard. It's hard to treat them, as we know, with a very high rate of relapse, and it's a huge problem we are addressing, but nevertheless, maybe we should think about it.
Alfred, sorry.
No, please. Sorry.
Saying with Mark Twain, when we speak about prognosis, which belongs to the future, it's always a very risky thing. But what we can say is that digitalization is on the way, that we can observe, and that it will be much a stronger movement as it is today. That is clear. How it will be linked with drug treatment and other ways of treatment, we will see. From my point of view, we cannot see it yet, how it will be in practice, because the digitalization is not in all areas. I see, for instance, the hospitals fighting for this digitalization, and they have no time, and they have too many patients, and they are struggling to do the basics, not the surplus, so to say. But in 100 years it will be different. Okay. That's for sure.
That's for sure.
That's for sure, yeah. Yeah, in that sense, change is the only thing that is constant, and we know, and change is happening at an increasing speed, and this is something that, things that we are living today were not possible just 3 to 5 years ago.
Right.
And this is going at such a speed that we cannot predict really, but that's what startups are here, is to create that future and to make it happen and to create solutions. And yes, it is unpredictable, but I believe this is exactly what we can change and do. Maybe just one thing that concerning the discussion that we're having, I'm not, as I said, I'm not a specialist, but I've gone through some certain things, and I've worked with hundreds of entrepreneurs, and I've gone through personal stories, and we are talking about mental health in general, as if we were talking about health, where you have cancer and you have some leukemia, or you have all these things, and that have to be treated totally differently. And maybe now talking about mental health as everything in the same slot. At some point, we will be probably talking about specific diseases and specific ways to heal on that journey. As you mentioned, severe cases need a totally different way of treatment compared to others.
As you have various DIGAs out there with various focus applications, let's call it like that. Yeah.
So
Roy.
we have so many questions,
Yeah,
but I think that I'm looking for trends and themes, and one of the themes that is coming back, and we have two experts here representing the people who are taking care of us as mental health professionals. How can we inspire them and educate them in use of digital tools?
How? By education, by training, by addressing the issue, by spreading out the informations. I think that we have to do it. I think that's possible.
Role models?
Role models,
always
yes.
work?
Yeah.
They're young. There are everywhere I look, young colleagues.
Thought leadership.
They are impressing young colleagues, very professional. Oh, I would be very optimistic that this shouldn't be the problem.
Thank you.
I mean, we've touched on this earlier in our discussion when we talked about, raising awareness about marketing, about designing interventions in a way that they will be taken up. And I think awareness is a huge part of it, and also, acceptance facilitating interventions when you kind of show people what that includes, to show them a little video and what that entails. It has been shown that this increases the likelihood and the probability that people will actually use something like that. So that is part of it, but also raising awareness, educating GPs, physicians, psychotherapists about the possibility.
Also, yeah.
And the advantages that they have through such
that needs to be very clear, otherwise they won't be taking it up.
Yeah.
I'm not so skeptic about that. It just takes time. I remembered an anecdote. My father was a farmer, and in the village, the neighbors asked him, psychologist, is this veterinarian? Mm-hmm. And he said, no, it's some type of a new priest. So he understood.
He understood.
And I think maybe we can maybe summarize, because of the time frame, with something that bothers me very deeply, and it's a question that comes up quite a lot. Why don't we move into prevention of mental health situations in general, not only morbidities, but risk? And this is something for all of you, if somebody wants to take it.
If I may start with that, just on a very basic level, I'm sorry, but this is exactly what I want to use and talk about, this mental fitness approach, where it is about really thinking of your mental health as the same way you think about your physical health, as a fitness and a habit and something you work on. And especially with my experience working with hundreds of entrepreneurs, I see that they are even more in a situation that is more stressful, more at risk, especially more at risk because they have to show face that they are successful and very happy and everything's okay, while at the same time they are going to a tremendous uncertainty in their roles. And this is something, at least on that level, so I'm not talking about severe illnesses, but on that level, we can make a lot of difference by talking about it. And I've dedicated part of my work, on one hand, raising awareness, but also developing my own programs and together with InstaHelp, among others, to help people develop habits that will help them not to go into stress, burnout, not to get into that stress out. And I believe it's a huge work that we need to do there. Yeah. And make it part of there is a Vorsorgeuntersuchung here in Austria. Make it part of on that kind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
we have. Sorry, we have one more question. Yeah?
Yes, Selma, it's so good to see you.
Thank you.
And you gave me the key for my question. Prevention, I think, is really a huge challenge, because a lot of mental diseases or mental conditions it's a fluid, right? It can be in various degrees. It can become acute. It can stay hidden. And as a matter of fact, there is an interesting program at Harvard University called the Flourish program, where they really, they basically describe a method how you can just become a healthier person, both mentally and spiritually and physically. It's all this quantified self philosophy maybe behind it. But of course, that is mental health prevention as well, right? And I know from big corporates, for example, that they love to support that kind of flourishing, that kind of general health and mental health. But why do they do that? They want that so you can work harder and you can always smile and you are always performant, and often it might lead actually to a condition that you experienced. So yes. I think that sort of the fact that it is a fluid condition and that there's a certain cutoff where you basically become really sick, and also then a further cutoff where you become a cost to society because you need to be hospitalized, or maybe because you end up in the criminal justice system, which is, I guess, the worst outcome. But I mean, let me remind you that 4.6% of the world population are bipolar, right? Of which maybe around 1.8% becomes acute at one point in their lives with a manic, phase. So these are all conditions that are extremely expensive once they become acute. So I ask myself, how can we have a strategy to actually prevent that? How can we monetize this prevention in terms of the money saved from the acute cases? And how can we do that without actually pushing people in just becoming the beautiful, performant, always smiling, always healthy people that, maybe the employer wants them to be?
As a public health expert, as I'm more the last 20 years, the last maybe 10 years, more than a clinical psychologist, I moved to public health, and there we do have, I think, a golden key, and the golden key is health promotion in the workplaces. And if we would reach there, really would reach the people first, and secondly, where do the mental health problems start? Already in pregnancy, already at the very early stages, we know. And one thing I did, the city of Vienna was doing this. We made nice films for what do parents know for mental health of their babies. Small, really very, very nicely done, very short films. And these films were on a sticker. And in every young mother or every parent who delivered in Vienna hospital gets a little bear, a nice little bear. And this bear has on his neck the sticker, and if the young parents with their babies are at home, they can stick that in and have a look. What should I do when the baby cries, etc., etc.? This is now, we do have this now in 5 or 6 languages. And I think if we start there.
Yeah, bravo. Yeah.
That is a lot. So you have a lot to do, I think.
I think, from a prevention point of view, the question is, why don't we move into prevention? I think this is already happening. There's a huge movement, especially in the health tech area, to move into prevention. And the answer is, how can we do this? Data. We're a digital event here, and there is a lot of information that we can use to actually prevent people from getting really ill, and this can be, a variety of data. People are always scared about this, but I think, data can save life. If we recognize when someone is, doing bad, then we can really precisely provide them with strategies to change that. And we've recently conducted a study on how to predict depression based on a variety of data from, for example, voice, the way you speak, sensor data such as, smartphone sensor data such as GPS, how many calls you do, but also ecological momentary assessment throughout the day. And it is possible to really forecast the symptoms of depression more precisely than you would have in a self-report. So I think getting there and finding, a precise way of telling when someone is doing, worse, and then without them actually knowing, getting to a place in my world where we can really counteract with certain strategies and tools that we recommend them so that they can get the help that they need at the right time, at the right point, and actually not exacerbate the condition.
Nice. Okay.
We have a lot of questions. We don't have the time, but I'm still urging the people, especially at home, to stay and discuss, because we're going to have still the discussion open, and we're going to have startup booth. We have 8 amazing startups that are solving a lot of the angles that we were touching up here, and I will mention their name after the panel. So please stay and ask the questions there.
There is one here that, one last.
Good evening, everyone. I won't be standing long between you and your drinks. Georgi Nachev, co-founder and CEO of digital mental health startup focused on burnout. My aspect or my comment here is not going to be much of a question. I wanted to step on the gentleman before. Namely, they say there is this kind of a saying, when you ride a bicycle, wherever you look at, that's the direction you take. So here is my general and kind of abstract comment here. We've been speaking about prevention, and this is nice to have. And it, in my opinion, is the, let's say, one next step in our journey. But how do we move from prevention? Since we are speaking about it, I consider it already done. What is the next step? How do we overcome prevention instead of focusing on avoiding certain specific obstacles, obviously running also into the danger of more or less directing us towards the very same obstacles? How do we move into a more self-aware state of mind? And how do we actually promote living in a way that is fulfilling, that is inner-centered, and in a time of constant instant gratification and dopamine-driven people, how do we actually reconnect with oneself as persons, as individuals, and also society? So I challenge all of us, maybe for the next event, maybe for next year, to actually think beyond prevention. It's already done. The fact that we are speaking about it says enough. What are the next steps? How can we survive? How can we make the most out of every day we have here? Thank you so much.
That was a good pitch for his startup, right? No, but I mean, that's exactly the point is, I mean, that's part of the prevention, and that's part of this whole idea of mental fitness, and it's being healthy and not becoming ill and not needing to prevent it, but really, and I can say that from one side that we have a rising number of investors, for example, that are putting part of their money into ensuring that their founders and the whole teams have coaching, support, psychological, whatever the founders might need to make sure that they stay healthy. Of course, it has to do with, they perform better and they make more money and whatever at the end of the day. But it is about making sure that they are healthy and they do not end up in burnout and stress and everything. And really making sure from the very beginning saying, this is part of that money goes into making sure that you're doing good. And that becomes then startups and corporates who take care of their own employees, and that becomes educated employees who have more educated families, and it is a circle that can be a positive spiral that can make it better in that sense. And I do believe, and I would like also to use 1 second of that, making a lot of calls today on everybody, but making sure that entrepreneurs and especially founders and especially female founders take care of their mental health and their mental well-being and their mental fitness as they are exposed much more than other groups to this, and especially again female founders. Take care of yourself. You're just amazing.
Thank you.
Just the fact that you are starting a company is just amazing.
And I would like to add to that call and call everyone, just like you, really take care of your own health and mental health, but also to you as employers, you as mothers and fathers, you as daughters, sons, grandsons, granddaughters, to watch over the ones you love, and also talk to each other right now. I'm sure we're going to have amazing discussions still ongoing. We have beautiful weather. We have a very nice location. And to you, digitally at home, also have a look at all the startups that are available in the digital space today. We have a couple of booths, digital booths. HelloBetter is one of them. Self-Help is one of them. Edupression is one of them. I'm sure you will name all of them.
Yeah, I will name all of them in
have
a
a look at them and try to reflect on what might be the best for you as an employer, for you as a patient, or teacher, guide, coach, whatever, whoever you are. Thanks for being with us tonight. Thank to you, and a big round of applause. It was amazing.
Awesome.